I wrote I wrote to the judge, and I asked the judge to tell the probation officer to give me access to my records because I have all legal right to every bit of my records. The judge wrote me a letter back, also sending the same letter to the probation department, saying unless there was probable cause as to why I couldn't have that information, I was to be permitted access to all information. Again, I was not permitted access. I wrote another letter to the judge, and he never contacted me. He never got back to me. I wonder why. Anyway, the probation officer decided that he had had enough, that it was getting too dangerous for him, too hot in the kitchen. So he gave me back to Colorado. So I went back to Colorado, turned myself in. The judge put me in jail saying that I had refused to admit guilt to the crime, therefore I had violated the conditions of my probation, and he put me back in jail. 6 days later, some good friends of mine bailed me out, and I left. While all of this was going on, my case was in the hands of the State Appeals Court in Colorado. I had written an appeal which was accepted as timely and perfected, and they had all my records, and my case was in their hands. I don't know how the judge did this. It was not within his jurisdiction to lock me up. Not only that, it's against my constitutional rights to attempt to force me to admit to a crime that I did not commit, or any other crime. So, after I got back out of jail, and I knew my case was on appeal, I decided I would go to Texas to do some work because I couldn't get work in Arizona. Everybody thought I was a convicted felon on child molestation charges, so there was no way I could get work. I was on the street. My wife had put me out there on the street and got her own apartment, so I had nowhere to live. So I went to Texas to get work. I had work waiting for me. And I got stopped there on my motorcycle. And they ran my license. And the officer said, "Oh, you got a little problem in Arizona." I said, "Yes, sir, but it's a misdemeanor." And he goes, "You know, you're right." And he says, "I can't touch you. I can't do anything to you." I said, "Well, that's nice." And I went on about my way. Well, that convinced me that I was right in what I was doing, that it was a misdemeanor. So I decided to challenge them even further. I had been invited to Mexico to help the Indian people. I'm a healer. Probably one of the best in the entire world as far as I'm concerned, and as far as a lot of other people are concerned. I have over 40 testimonials from 4 years of hard labor, where I worked on over 4,000 people in that 4 years. I cured cancer 4 times, and I'm very proud of the fact that I help people. That's what I do. I make my life helping others. So I decided to go down to Mexico, to the Baja, to help the Pai, the Fucapa, and the Kiliwa Indians, who are the poorest people on the continent. After being there for 3.5 months and helping hundreds of people, literally, I created a business. I became friends with the Pai chief, who was only 24 years old at the time. And I was watching them make adobe blocks one day and decided that I would help them. And we built a business out of the adobe blocks. We sell adobe blocks, and we build adobe homes. We built 5 adobe homes in the San Felipe area, which are absolutely amazingly beautiful. I have lots of pictures. I stood side by side with the Pai chief for over a year and led him through the whole process. And after we were done, I gave him the business so that he could help his people. This business employed 33 people and made them over $1 million in 2.5 years. If you can imagine the effect that it had on a small community. I've become well known in this small community. Everybody loves me. I love everybody else there. It's been a wonderful, wonderful time. I knew I was sick. I knew I was dying. I knew that I had probably maybe 2 years left. And I figured that I would give that 2 years to helping others to the full, to my full capacity. So in September of 2008, I became very, very ill, and I knew that my heart was wanting to stop. So I had the firefighter chief take me to Ensenada, where I visited with a cardiac specialist. He did an EKG on me and found that both sides of my heart were wanting to quit. He told me that I had days, weeks, maybe months, but no years left, and that I was certainly going to die. He gave me a few pills to take so that it would be easier for me, but it didn't work out too well. And I just kept doing, you know. As long as I'm alive, I'm just going to keep doing for others. In November, on November 17th, I came out of my home. This is November 17th, 2009. I came out of my home and locked my door. This is in Mexico, Baja, Mexico. And I don't remember a thing after that. I woke up 6 days later in San Diego Hospital, University of San Diego Medical Center. And the first thing that I realized was that I had a chain on my left leg chained to the bed, and I had a handcuff on the right hand chained to the bed. I looked to my immediate right, and there was a police officer standing and on his way out of the room. He came back with doctors and nurses, and they were all looking down at me, smiling and telling me how that I was dead, and that they had put my body on ice because the temperature was so high they needed to drop the temperature to save my life. They put me under warm blankets and brought me back to life with paddles. And they were telling me how lucky I was to have survived a massive heart failure, that I had 100% blocks. And after they left the room, I asked the police officer how I got there. He just sat in silence. I asked him how he got there. I asked him what he was doing there. I asked him for a warrant. I asked him for a lawyer. All this man could do was tell me to shut my mouth. Well, I spent 4 days with them changing officers on occasion. But on one occasion, I was allowed to get up and go to the bathroom. I had to ask permission, and sometimes I was denied, seemingly for no reason. I went to the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, and my eyes were cut and swollen, cut here. My lip was cut. My glasses were missing. My teeth were missing. Everything was gone. And my face is all swollen up from a beating that I took at the San Diego County Jail. Obviously, I had been beaten to death. My body felt like I had been beaten to death. Somebody had kicked me in my chest, and that was pretty obvious. 4 days later, a very large police officer comes into the room and drops my clothes on the floor, along with my boots, and says, "You're a free man. Nobody wants you." I couldn't imagine what was going on. I couldn't imagine. I had no clue. All of a sudden, I'm a free man. Well, the next thing I know, they're taking me by ambulance to another hospital for surgery. At some point, I remember being in my clothes in my hospital room at this other hospital, trying to leave. The doctor was there. There were nurses there. A lot of people. They were trying to keep me from leaving. The doctor told me that I wouldn't make it to the door, that I would be dead before I hit the front door. I was scared to death. They were talking about splitting my chest open and taking my heart out and fixing it, taking veins from my leg and replacing the 100% blocks with clear veins, clear vessels. I was scared. You can't imagine. The next thing I remember, I was in the bed in the hospital clothes and signing the contract for my heart surgery. After heart surgery, which took place, I believe it was on the 3rd of December, they kept me for a few days, and then I was released on the 8th.